to share their success stories. We have Mr. Ben Ward with an MFA in painting. Ben is a foundations and painting professor at SCAD. His artwork has been exhibited in New York, Miami, Serbia, and Montenegro. He will be teaching in Lacoste, France this summer, and I understand you came just to see us, yes? We also have Michael Porten. Is that correct? Come on up. With an MFA in painting, Michael has been named Painter of the Decade by New American Paintings. His artwork has been exhibited in galleries in New York, Hong Kong, Miami, and Lacoste, France. Next we have, and please tell me if I'm saying this right, Bhat, CEO of Sirham Bhat LLC. He is a director, matte painter, designer, and concept artist, Emmy, Grammy, MTV, EMA award winner, and the recipient of 3 Cannes Lions Awards. And Mr. Russ Hailey, an Addy Award winner, graphic designer. Russ is the creative director for Hailey Designs. Thank you very much.
And we'll find out that Ram and Mike and I went to Bob Jones all at the same time. So this year we got to deal with this for, well, 2 or 3 years exactly. Can everyone hear me okay? It's all right? Okay, I'll take that as a yes. So I'm going to talk about, you'll get to see some of my work, but I'm a professor. I teach with Owen, not in the same department, and SCAD's so big that we rarely see each other unless we're all together. But I was just in France before I came here, hanging out with a good friend who works for Owen in the ID department. His name's Ben as well. But anyway, so I'm going to talk about my experience as an artist and art student in the state of Alabama, and that's one. Yep, that's the one. And how one specific teacher helped me become, you know, she's the reason really that I'm here. So it's more of a thank you note presentation for that one teacher. So she knows who she is. This is me, glorious me in amazing haircut. Hasn't changed much. I think I had to grow into my ears. I don't know when that was, 6th grade maybe? Anyway, my grandfather was an artist. My mother's from the Midwest, St. Louis area. Her father was an artist and a professor at Washington University and worked for Ralston Purina as an illustrator for a long time and a fine artist as well. But I took that for granted growing up. It was just there. And he was a big inspiration for me, but I never really thought I was going to be an artist. I thought I was going to be a fighter pilot. It didn't work out. And then I wanted to be a professional athlete. Also didn't work out. But sports was very important to me growing up because it helped me learn how to focus. My parents got me involved in sports pretty early on. I had trouble focusing. Now they call it ADHD and things like that. And I was a slow learner. So I was a robin in my 1st grade reading class, not an eagle, or no, not a blue jay or an eagle. But I persevered. I remember my mom reading me Leo the Late Bloomer, if anybody knows that book. It was a very big part of my childhood. And it helped me. But they were very supportive. My mom is a nurse. My father works for the government in missile defense, and he was previously in the Army for 20 years as a lieutenant colonel. So neither of them really understood art, but they were immensely supportive. My dad's actually here today. Drove down from Huntsville. They still live there. Let's see. So this culture of sport, like I said, in middle school, my parents focused, or were able to focus my attention towards sports as a means of releasing all my energy, so that I'd come home and not tear everything up and be crazy. And drawing was something that I found early on that I enjoyed. And my grandfather, when we would visit him, would help to, without me really knowing, I just thought everybody had a grandfather that was an artist and an amazing. So I would sit in his lap at the drafting table, and he would just draw me pictures. I'd tell him something to draw, and he would draw it. And I didn't really understand how important that idea of tacit knowledge was and learning from just watching him until later when I became a professor. And again, I had no idea I wanted to teach until I got into almost finishing my undergrad before I really realized and started. I'm really bad at self-realization. I kind of have just existed and then, oh, maybe I should think about who I am and what I should do. So anyway, I played a lot of sports. It developed my ability, sports did. And again, these are all things that I've had to really go back and think about when I do artist talks and things like that. But sports is something that is integral to my studio practice now, as weird as that sounds. We've already sort of learned how things that we don't literally connect to the arts is actually, or those things are integral in creating. So sports is another one of those things. So it developed my ability to solve problems under a time limit and to exist within the moment. It's not something I was good at when I was a child, and even I struggle with it now. It also helped me to understand community and friendship, and specifically the energy of performing within that moment, being present. That would later play a really huge role in my work. So I took art in middle school, and my parents were aware, both my sister and my older sister and I were both draftspeople. We loved to draw, we loved to paint. Growing up in the Southeast, we've just, again, learned earlier today, those opportunities, especially on military bases as well, were kind of few and far between. So they enrolled us in private art lessons. They knew my grandfather was really important to us, so we went and visited them a lot. So they are aware of that. They are aware of our passion. So I have a lot that I owe to them. So hopefully I make them proud and all those other things. So middle school didn't go for well in school. The one art class I did have, I wasn't mature enough. My teacher couldn't wrangle me, so I ended up sitting out in the hallway a lot during really fun things that I wanted to do. So I was kind of cut off to art for a little while, but then I got to high school, and I knew I wanted to take art. I was a freshman. I think this is a slightly later photograph of me. Hear me playing sports. The Liberty Middle School, I think that's in Madison still, right? The Lions. Mike and I were on the soccer team together. So I got into high school a couple years after this, and my freshman year I enrolled in Art 1. Miss Huey came into the classroom one day. She saw my drawings. My older sister was already kind of the superstar. I was constantly in her shadow, way smarter than me, way more talented than me. But Miss Huey, knowing that she was my sister and then seeing me draw, gave me a chance, so she brought me into her Art 2 class. So I was definitely a fish out of water there. But she gave me a chance. She was my true first mentor. She showed me how to focus, how to exist, again, within that moment. She taught me how much effort had to really go into something to make it something that people wanted to look at, and how to communicate. And she was also very relentless. She wouldn't let you give up. So most people have heard stories about our teachers, everything about Miss Huey is true. So many of us, all three of us actually up here on the panel, and probably Russ too, would make something, we wouldn't like it, we'd get halfway through, we'd throw it away, we'd want to start over. But she would go and pull out of the trash can without us knowing, and then I'd say maybe a month or two later, we'd be ready to start our next project. She said, how about this one? And so I know I've had award-winning drawings that were previously trashed to me, mistakes, that she wouldn't let us give up on, because she saw the potential, and that's huge as an educator to be able to recognize that. She was also constantly walking around giving everybody individual feedback in class, which for me was super informative, because I started teaching at SCAD at a young age, fresh out of graduate school, and the experience wasn't as developed in the classroom for myself, so I had to lean on what other instructors, and most notably Ms. Huey, had used as strategies to develop their classroom. So, yikes, I went too fast. There we go. No. Are you doing that, or am I doing that?
I'm not touching it, but you want me to?
Yeah, can you do it? This thing hates me. Okay, so there we are in high school, and that's actually Ram, myself, and Mike here with Miss Huey. I forget what year it was, but we were all inducted into our high school's Hall of Fame, which was a big deal at the time. And that's one of the few pictures I still have from high school. I don't know why I don't have anything more. I think my parents probably have loads, but moment of awkwardness for those 4 years. I don't want to exist anymore. Visually, aesthetically. Okay, so we can go on to the next slide. I'm going to, just so you don't get too bored, I'm going to just have some work up. This is work that I did while I was in school. But I remember developing my portfolio while in high school, really beginning to blossom as a draftsperson specifically, and wanting and realizing sports wasn't going to work out for me. I wasn't going to be a fighter pilot. So I began to develop my portfolio and want to pursue art as a career. I knew my grandfather had done it successfully, so I had this vision that I could do it. My sister had gone on to study art in college, and I wanted to follow in that. So Ms. Huey was really diligent in helping me develop my portfolio. During my senior year, we began to go to portfolio days, and we had no idea how to do any of this stuff. We didn't know what to do. So she was amazing at saying, you're going to do this, and you're going to do this, and you're going to fill out this paperwork, and you're going to apply here, and you need to go here, and we need to look at this thing on this thing. And it was overwhelming, but she was great at guiding. And she wasn't just guiding us, she was guiding several classes. So it was, looking back, fairly amazing. A, that I made it at all, but B, that she had the patience to see that task through. So one thing, and when I really knew that I had the ability to succeed in the world of art, was when we went to these portfolio review days. We were getting, all of us at Bob Jones were getting really positive reviews. And when we finally applied to these schools, everybody was getting scholarship opportunities in their art departments. So some of the few, and Miss Huey asked me to do this, but because I couldn't remember half of them, but some of the few that I remember as highlights that where I was really excited about were that I received scholarships to were Auburn, Mississippi State, SCAD, which is Savannah College of Art and Design, Cleveland Institute of Art, Ringling School of Art and Design, and Memphis College of Art and Design. Another thing I was really proud about in high school was myself and 4 other Bob Jones seniors. It was the first year that we had swept the Visual Arts Achievement Award given by the Alabama State Council of the Arts. So the top 5 senior portfolios in the state were all awarded to Bob Jones seniors. So I like to brag about that. Go Patriots. And it was kind of then that we realized that Miss Hugh was so special, that she wasn't just another art teacher from another art school or another high school art. And again, it drives it home for me today. I wasn't going to talk about this that much, but hearing the statistics about students not having access to art in the state, I realized how special and how unique of a situation it was. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit more. So we can talk a little bit more about my artwork in a moment, but I wanted to finally say that after looking and going and visiting, my dad was amazing in taking us to visit all of these, or myself, and I guess Ram and Mike on several occasions, to visit a lot of these schools that we had received scholarships to. Again, something he didn't have to do, but it was SCAD, and SCAD was the only school that actually, and then growing up in a culture of sport, this idea of recruitment, Fran Jones came into our cafeteria one day, because that was the only place that she was allowed to talk with us. And that made a huge difference for me. And then going to visit the school in Savannah, and I'd never been, so the southern charm that was there, the romanticism of the city visually is amazing. So I chose SCAD. So I went to SCAD, I got my degree, and then I also went back and got my MFA in painting in 2008, began teaching the same year. Some of my work, you can go to the next slide. This is some of my work from graduate school. These were Moleskine sketchbook drawings. You'll see Mike as a heavy visual influence. We were students at SCAD as well together. So my work in graduate school was a lot about connecting to my southernness and how I fit and how I saw myself being southern and sort of the absurdities that exist within our amazing southern culture. So a lot of these small, you can go to the next slide. These are pages with quotes. Mike is sort of playing a Confederate soldier there. These are quotes that I was sort of privy to, I thought, that weren't always spoken around certain people or places. And they're fairly absurd quotes. So anyway, this was some of my, and then I had a moment of clarity during my 3rd year of graduate school. There is a monument in the center of the city. And on that monument, it's a monument to the Confederate dead during the Civil War. It says, "Come from the four winds, O breath, and breathe upon these slain that they may live." It's from Ezekiel, the Valley of Dried Bones, and sort of that story. And that was my catalyst for all of my thesis work. So the next several slides, and this is before Walking Dead and all that stuff. But so I began to create these sort of faux memorials or funerary monuments of Confederate zombies. And so these are really small, and I'm engraving parts of the frame myself with parts of the quote, the Ezekiel quote. And then these are some close-ups of the paintings. And then I worked really large as well. So these were 4 by 5 foot in the same type frames. Again, you're going to see Mike a lot. Having a beard was really helpful for me in my... These are really large-scale graphite drawings. So I got a job at SCAD teaching. This is after my graduate work. I began teaching the same year I graduated. I got lucky and fell into a position that had become available, and they haven't fired me yet. So anyway, so if we could go on to some of the next work. When I started to teach, I was teaching with people that were much older than me. Some had been teaching longer than I had been alive, and it was a really intimidating environment. So I decided, again, to go back and really think, well, why did Miss Huey make it fun for me to be in art class? So I decided, you know, I need to go back and I need to show my students this innate language of drawing. And that was really important for me, to be able to communicate to them and to show them. That's so important in what I felt was sort of a position of immaturity within the classroom. So I said, well, I know I can do this. I know I can draw, and I want people to watch me draw because I don't have that wisdom just yet. So I would draw for my students. And then I realized, man, this is really fun. And I started to connect that idea of sport, that sort of timed event, and sort of being in the moment, responding to this thing that's in front of you that's a live being. And I started going back and just making drawings. So we can go to the next slide. It's a fetal skull. This drawing has changed in the way that I sort of accept it, in the sense that I just had a son. So he's 5 months old now, so it's a very different drawing now. But it was literally going back to sort of the roots of for me, of what became the foundation of humanity, since I was teaching a lot of life drawing and drawing. So these are drawings done in pastel. I wanted to include a couple demos that I do in class for my students, say in life drawing when we're studying light on form, and the sort of complexities of the cranium, for instance here. That's a bobcat skull in pastel. And most of this, again, another classroom demo that I do for my students. It activates and energizes the room when you can draw for your students. And I think that's so important, because if you can energize your students, most of your job is kind of, the hard part anyway, I think, is done, because then they're going to go out and do it, and then you just respond to what they do. So it's difficult. I teach 8 a.m. classes, so it's difficult to walk into a room with all your art supplies an hour after you've just woken up. And draw for everybody, but it's really rewarding when it works, and when you have 20 students sort of responding to that energy the same way that you do, and the same way you get excited about it. So these are just more examples of my work. Outside of the classroom, again, like Owen was saying, we have to remain practicing artists. So a lot of this stuff I decided not to include, but I do a lot of work, freelance work, for production companies all over the place. And this idea of community, I think, is really important to develop in the classroom. SCAD's huge. You found out on collaboration, working with other companies. So it's really important for me to work with people I know and have known for a long time and developed. And this was one thing when I got to SCAD that was really unique. I got there and I realized, man, I don't know anybody else that has like another person that they went to high school here at school. And I have 7. There were 7 of us that went to SCAD. 2 from previous years, but we were all together, and so that community has just grown. And most of the opportunities I get are based from that community. So people have gone out, they're working in the industry, and they call me and say, hey, I really need help with this. I'm in a jam, and they know me, and they know I can produce something. So I do it for them. So that's a lot of what I do outside of that, and most of it's conceptual artwork, storyboarding, just drawing-based things. So this is my wife. I did a drawing of my wife, again in pastel. And then this is something that just recently came across for Women's History Month VH1. And again, I got the opportunity because of somebody that I was friends with. that had made friendship through SCAD. But Women's History Month, VH1 wanted to do a campaign where they took 20 artists and they illustrated 20 important women from the music industry. So this is Queen Latifah. It's a drawing I did of her. I think it's still out on vh1.com and things like that. But that's it. That's me. I think it's Mike's turn. You guys are going to be amazed. No pressure. The PowerPoint.
I guess I can. Am I breaking this? Hello. I suppose I should issue my list of disclaimers if my head explodes or there's a pool of sweat beneath me or if I'm just blurry because I'm shaking so much. I apologize. Seriously, I'm sorry. And I'm a bit under the weather. So I guess I'm going to talk a little bit about my work and wing it a little bit also. I've got some notes on my... Typically, I do these talks for classrooms or groups of artists or educators that are just interested in seeing what artists do. And I guess I'm going to take it that way 90% and see if I can talk a bit more. Oh, let's see. I got to tell you which one. Oh, you're all right.
So you don't mind vamping?
Oh, sure.
We could do a dance. We do our planned dance.
Planned dance. There's a dancers up here for us. I guess I can talk a little bit about myself. I'm born in Indiana, raised in Alabama. I moved here when I was 7 or 3rd grade, however old that is. 8th, unless I skipped a grade, which no, I don't think I did. But gosh, what should I say about myself? Played sports, yeah. Went to school with these guys, and yeah, Bob Jones High School. So I am here also because of Miss Huey. She asked me to be here to participate in this advocacy program, which I've never really spoken for advocacy before. I've never spoken to legislators or anything like that, or tried to get money for anything aside from scholarships or myself. So this is sort of like the same thing. So future me's out there. Gosh, what am I even saying? I'm also here because Miss Huey asked me to be more than I thought I could be. And she can tell you a million stories, and I guess I've got the microphone so I could try, but they don't really come across. I was a mess, or at least, I don't know, a creative mess or a classroom mess, problem child, or whatever you'd want to call that thing I was at that time. I always enjoyed making artwork, and maybe it was kind of escape or an outlet for my imagination, or I don't know, any list of reasons why I did what I did. I think a unique thing about our time and place there in Madison, Alabama was the group of people that came along with us. So me and Ben and Rom were all in class together. There's also Eddie O'Brien and Jeremy Johnston, loads of people that were my peer influences. Tyson Pershaw and Brett Hollis, who's probably the worst example of what to be as an artist. No, I'm just kidding. He teaches at Austin now, I think, somewhere in Austin. So let's see. Let me go a bit on this track for a minute. Also, I'm here because of Fran Jones and SCAD. Well, I got lucky. I won a congressional art competition because Miss Huey made me apply for it with a drawing that I thought was, bleh, I don't know. And I won. I don't know. It was just complete luck. There are a lot of arbitrary factors that are involved in judging art competitions. I was just lucky. That's all I see it as. But anyways, Fran Jones was there and offered me a scholarship to SCAD, and so I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to college. I didn't really know how expensive it was at the time. School is expensive. And like maybe a week before I was set to go down there, I realized I didn't have enough money to go, and I called her, and she said, "Come down at Montgomery. I'm going to look at your portfolio, put something together, and put together a package to apply for," which I did. She came down, she fed me lunch, and we worked through putting that together. Applied, and they gave me enough money to go to school, so I did, and now here I am. So, anyways, this is what I did at school. This is my I got my BFA at SCAD in illustration, also my MFA in painting. And I worked for a few years as an illustrator and exhibition designer in between there. But I guess I'll just talk about my work now. This is typically where I pick up, this is grad school work, and I guess I'll do this thing if I'm going to the next thing since this thing's busted. Okay. So you saw Ben did quite a lot of paintings and drawings of me in school. Before I got there, he was ahead of me because I was still doing the grind and exhibitions. Where, as an illustrator, I learned that my work could branch over to the fine arts side or the gallery side. I was making a lot more money painting portraits than I was doing covers for the Santa Fe Reporter or whatever small-end magazines I was doing at the time. Had a lot of almosts. My work was under review, I guess, for the Harry Potter books for a few months before they decided I wasn't that cool. And Chronicle almost gave me like some list of 100 books to do, but I didn't get that. But I did get a lot of painting commissions, I guess, and that's what was making money. And so going to work, realized I also needed a sheet of paper to become an educator, which would have been a far better thing for me to be doing than setting up shows, which was a nice way to learn about that world, but I wanted to be in it instead of just presenting it for other people. So anyways, then, yeah, here I am, going to school, sorry. Trying to reclaim my portrait as my own, because Ben sort of flooded the community with, so I come there to make work, and they're like thinking all my work is Ben's work, so I guess the first thing I did was sort of cue off Ben, trying to reclaim my portrait as my own. So, and you'll see, I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds of these things that I ended up doing. I didn't realize quite how important was it to me at the time, but I was trying to paint something truthful and honest, and I felt like I didn't know much more than myself, and I'm still struggling to figure out what that is. But that's the closest thing to being honest as I felt I could, so I was doing a lot of self-portraiture, and these were from direct observation, photo reference, and memory. So I painted enough of these things to do this from memory, and sort of playing around with the relevancy of what your source imagery is, or what you're actually looking at, and what your visual experience is actually mediated through. Okay, so I'll go on. I had a 15-hour review for SCAD, and I did 9 of these paintings. These are 4 by 6 feet, oil on canvas. Sort of a political sort of comment on the political complacency of my peers. At an art school, a lot of folks like to party and do stuff like that and hang out and wear, I don't know, socialize. I was more interested in learning, and so I guess I sort of felt like an outsider to a certain point. There was somewhat of a comment on that. I'll just speed through. I did these years ago also, so I apologize. My memory, I'll remember things in bits and pieces, but in any case, yeah, I'll just go on. So, yeah, we can cycle through these couplescape. That's my buddy Grant. I'll go on. One thing I guess I could note on this stuff in my work, these mattresses, I think were a key thing for me. Like, all of these were taken in the same place, so also the floorboards. I painted these floorboards 9 times, so I got pretty intimate with that wood. And also, realizing that the weight of that figure compressing on the mattress is simply described by those stripes, and how much information is just conveyed in a line there was huge for me. Started me thinking the difference between flatness and representation, which is a pretty huge thing in contemporary dialogue and painting. I'll go on. This is going to be a bit scatterdash, but I'll just spit through here so we can get on to the next guy and you guys can forget about me. Anyways, it's in South France. SCAD's got a satellite campus called, the Lacoste campus. I did a lot of portraits, and that's something I'm pretty quick at. So this village in the winter, because I was here in the winter, is covered in snow. Had about 40-something people living in this medieval hill town. And this is a place that, they've got Cardin there and SCAD, and like the city's pretty much entirely enveloped by the arts, and they welcome the arts into that community, and it sort of gets overrun with it. So this was a gesture of gratitude to the people that live there. All these paintings I did of these folks I gave to them as gifts. I'm missing probably 8 that were there in that winter, but it also started me trying to hybridize my practice into making paintings that are more than just about paintings, or more than a painting. So it's a painting and a gift in this essence. It's an experiment, or a social experiment. I guess in that way. And this is some of my thesis work. These are, I'll go on to the next one. There's 50 of these self-portraits. It's a zoetropic self-portrait that's displayed in a circle. You stand in the center and spin around and go through this 360-degree hue shift of the figure that's activated by a spinning viewer. So it's a movie that you play by spinning around in the center. You can go to the next guy. So that's a room I built with these things, and anyways, that was my thesis. So again, trying to make painting into more than just about painting. It's a painting in a movie involving a viewer, and just sort of messing around with so my thesis was also on self-portraiture and the absurd conditions, so dealing with things like overproduction and the absurd nature of many different aspects of being. I'll go on. I'll try to run through this. I think I got a lot of slides. I sadly have to admit that I'm not the painter of the decade. I don't know if there's a little bit of misinformation out there. I wish I was, but I was on the cover of New American Paintings with this painting. Back in 2010. But this was sort of inspired from those mattresses. So the money I got from that, I paid off what debt I had and was able to get enough credit to have a credit card, which I used to buy a vinyl plotter, which I made this work for, which paid for itself 4 times over the sale of that work. And I started making this work that was more than just stripes. I was incorporating objects and symbols to make these sort of symbolic paintings, and I considered my portrait sort of found content as well, because I didn't make myself, and other reasons. But it was a vehicle for interpersonal communication. So from looking at me, I was trying to talk with people about other people or themselves. Anyways, I'll keep going through this. There's a bunch of different variations, so yeah, we'll just fly through these. These don't matter. It's all good. There's a mattress I painted on. This is part of a coincidental family portrait. There's a few meth addicts out there that look a bit like my family members. My family's not on meth. They're not drug addicts. I don't do drugs. But it was just coincidental that they bear a striking resemblance. And also, trying to make a conversation about painting and this sort of addiction, because that's all it is. You get addicted to this stuff, making stuff, and it's something that manifests itself on the surface of an object as meth manifests itself on the surface of people. And anyways, there's a bunch of different metaphors going on in there. That was in a show, my first solo show I had in New York, because I was on the cover of that painting or magazine. I got a solo show in New York where I showed. Is that the cue to like speed up? Right there. All right. Okay. Whoa. Anyways, also, I make a lot of weird stuff aside from painting. When I was living in New York summer before this. 'Cause my girlfriend at the time got an internship over there and collecting mattress fabric from the streets of New York, which is not that healthy of a thing to do. But I did it. Because there's sort of taking a cue off Mike Kelly, there's objects in the world that are imbued with an experience as well. So this is a place where people sleep, obviously, and do other things. And also a kind of leveling field for any human that, executed whatever actions that you could call good or bad. At a certain point, they're all resting. So it's sort of a unifying or a middle point, I guess, for looking at people anyways. Stupid thoughts. I took a trip to Ireland where I saw a show from Bridget Riley and was mixing her with Talbot Auerbach. A lot of times I just, I'll mix up living and dead people, sort of, and make a mess with it. So I'm not sure. This is Bridget Riley, Talbot Auerbach, and maybe Coons. And there's 6 of these. I typically work in 6s. A lot of my work, I should also say, is inspired by computer aesthetic. I initially went to SCAD for computer art, and because they have an amazing animation program, I got there and realized I was pretty far behind. Even I was doing 3ds Max in high school and was a total nerd, but was way behind compared to my roommate Dave Boxer, who was a genius, and I didn't know it. So I figured I'd go on to making this stuff, which is, in any case, sort of offspring of that. So this is sort of computer generated, span of 6, that this nosebleed glamour shot effect happens. These are pretty weird to look at. This is Dream something? I can't remember. I was thinking about like in a TV show when you have this like dream sequence thing happens. Anyways, I'll go on to the next thing. These are objects that shouldn't exist but do for some reason. If you take the alternating lines of a etching and oppose them, it should come out with something that's gray. But so a lot of times I make things that I don't understand, and I don't know if anybody else does either. But it's fun to do. I don't know why. I should have a detail of these, but you can make out like the edge of a portrait here and an animal, deleted animal. So they're deleted, but they're still there. So I'm making weird stuff. Okay, we'll go on to the next thing. Also, making 3 paintings appear at the same time on the surface of this thing. So you've got my buddy Will dressed as Pinocchio, an inverted painting of myself there, so beard and eyes, and also the Camel cigarette logo. I think there were 3 paintings I did for the Fort Wayne Museum of Art. I think this one was Vice, Boredom, Vice, and Need. This one's Vice. This is something I did for it was in conjunction with a little black dress event at the SCAD Museum of Art. I think there's 101 panels on this wall. That's an elevator. I don't know how big this is, but it's pretty big. And you can sort of make out, it was all houndstooth patterns. So I was using houndstooth pattern as Ben-Day dots. So that pattern sort of expanded and shrunk to make this sleeping man on a bench. I'm sorry these are so small. I got the format of this thing wrong, but there's a head of a sleeping man with his shoulder and some abstract stuff going on, and I would be about this big. I don't know. I'll go That was also part of the same thing. All of this work was made in a month, which is information. Also, while I was in New York, I spent a lot of time going to the Met, walking around the streets and seeing. There's this one guy that was spitting out these heads, in like 15 minutes, like two-handed in this sculpture, and I'd go out and watch him mess with his clay and make these great portraits of people, and figured I'd give that a shot. I was trying to figure out what to paint. That whole room full of things was about not knowing what to paint. Inspired by the spinning beach ball of death on a Mac computer screen. That's why it's going through you. I'm remembering this stuff as I go. But anyways, this is surrogate guessing machine. So the idea is that you can approach this object and ask it a question, and it'll be equally as capable of answering it as I would, because it has the guts of an magic 8 ball in its forehead. I'll go on to the next one. This is something I did for an event in Atlanta, SCAD-PAD event. They asked me if I could make a giant chess set, and I'd never used a lathe before, but I had a rickety old lathe in my 100-year-old 5,000 square foot warehouse wood workshop that I've got or had. Turned out a piece, and then I got some phone and said I could do it, which I sort of thought I could. And anyways, so I learned how to use a lathe, and also started to get into fabricating stuff on CNC or milling out, because the knights were done digitally and had them milled out of foam. The heads were the heads I used previously for that other sculpture as pawns. And I'll go on to the next one. I also made an illuminated letter piece for the side of this tiny house that says "I love you more than tomorrow," and on the interior of that are images of my cats. So it's for them. I make a lot of artwork for my cats, which other people like. I'll go on. I did a shower in this thing. So this is like a tiny shower. I don't know. Making stuff is crazy. Typically, people ask me, like, hey, can you do this? And I say, I don't know. Let me go see. I'll take a few days. And I'll say, oh, yeah, I can do that. So the shower is this way. And I guess I'm meant to do a bunch of these for maybe a bunch of hotels around the country. So if you're in a hotel and it lights up and freaks you out, I might have been behind it. We'll go on. Yeah, can you put up 15,000 pencils on a wall in 2 days? I'll give it a shot. There's also a door in there somewhere, which is hidden. Magic. I'll go on. Yeah. Let me keep going. Let's see, this is last year, so I'm getting a little bit more up to date. This is digital painting of a guy with a beard that's probably me, because it is. There's 6 of these. I'll keep going. These are light boxes. So I made my first light box with those letter pieces, and these, I'll keep going, were these 6 light box letter pieces. They're like 4 by 4 feet, lambda duratrans prints. It was just something, playing around with stuff. I usually do spans of 6. I'll create an effect over that serial work that is referencing, in this case, what did I call this stuff? It's like false positives. So fear, lots of fear. I was having lots of fear at that time. I'll just say that. Anyways, hang on, go back. Above that, if we can go backwards, these ones were for Art Basel Hong Kong. So this is first satellite fair to the Basel Hong Kong fair, which was a pretty big deal. I got to go there twice this past year for a couple different, for this and another installation. I think I've got a fence I did over there that we'll see. We'll keep going. We'll just run. We'll keep running. This is gobbledygook. This is junk that's in my head. This is a fence I did. Sometimes people need their fences painted in Hong Kong. And there's nobody there that can do it. They have to get me to do it. I'm just kidding. This is a show I did at the Westaboo Festival in Augusta. There's a bunch of different stuff. Oh, you're fine. We'll just keep running. This stuff was kind of interesting. So stumbled upon, I don't know, gosh, what was that thing? Stochastic resonance. Okay, so this is something that happens in sound. Like if I put this next to that other microphone, we'll get some nice reverberation. But the Divisionist painters were also messing around with this, like Sirham and Van Gogh. Those guys were kind of scientists for their era. Those guys were nerds. They might seem very ethereal and emotional, but they were nerds. They were trying to create a heightened experience of color for people by separating them and posing them in a jarring way to make something that was even more colorful. So these are all wildflowers that were that I found in South France, and this is a cave there in Lacoste where I had this solo show this past summer. Yeah, let's go. I don't know why we got stuck on this one of me jumping. But this is a mural I did there also, and pardon my clutter, I just finished and I didn't really clean up before this, but so that's a really large striped piece there with 2 self-portraits in it. This is something I did for New Balance. I've done a few projects for them. This is in Falmouth, Connecticut, Cape Cod. Is that where that is? Where did I go? Massachusetts, sorry. Went up there to make a replica of their lighthouse, which is sort of a pillar of this marathon that they run around. So I help people sell shoes. I'll go on to the next one. Show I had in Toronto. Again, mess around with color. This, I mean, I don't know. I do a lot of weird stuff. So it looks black and white in the sides, but there's actually a lot of color there. It's all tiny colored dots that come out to make the appearance of gray, but it's all color. And in the center, there's an interesting thing when you oppose, vibrating black and white lines through a moire effect. Your brain perceives color. And I'm still trying to figure out what I'm doing with this stuff. If anybody in the room knows, like, find me afterwards and let me know what I'm doing. But again, mess around with stuff that I don't really know, but you can see this vibrating rainbow of colors that happens through that black and white. So grayscale stuff that's about color. I'll go on to the next thing. There's some guy standing in front of it. Oh, you're good. We'll keep going. And this is one of the last projects I worked on, the Savannah Women of Vision. I got asked to do some portraits of notable women of Georgia or Savannah for the Savannah College of Art and Design. This initiative was meant to honor these women who were initially excluded from a mural that in the place where it's sitting. I'll just encourage you to Google this project because there's a lot of information on it that I feel like I'm going to mess up if I try. But essentially, these were done in ZBrush. I didn't know. I'm typically sculpting in clay, so this is a quick turnaround. There were 6 of these I had 2 months to do. So I figured I'd have to figure out some other way to do it. And I tried to see if I could learn ZBrush in 3 days, which I did well enough to say yes to this project. And in 2 weeks, we'll keep going. I had these, I guess 2 or 3 weeks, I had these heads turned out. And these were milled out of wood, which eventually came back to my shop, where I sanded off all the furry bits and chiseled out some details and used a Dremel to put them into a more finalized state, adding detail and refining them, and then they were painted gold. And we'll keep going. I think this is my last slide. You're off the hook soon. Here's, what is it, 5 of these. So there were 10 total. The other wall has 5 more of these women. Yeah, so that's where I am right now. I've got some other projects right now that I've signed some non-disclosures, so I can't talk about them, but they're pretty cool. In 2017, maybe around Atlanta, you might see something huge from me. I'll just say that. Let's see. Should I also say? I don't know. I feel like should say something because I'm talking to legislators and people I don't even know about advocating for the arts. In retrospect, it's easy to see, like, maybe you should give this guy a scholarship, or maybe their art program needs some grease to push these folks along. But again, I was terrible. I didn't know how to draw I was chasing Ben and Rom and everybody else, trying to figure out how to do this stuff. I had to have somebody encourage me to believe in myself and to have the means to do that. And I think, I guess that's what everybody's here to try to do, try to figure out how to make it easier for the next group of kids to come through. And I hope you do that, and that's it. Thanks.
Hello, is everyone here an art educator of some sort? No. Okay, well, if you are, your classroom's on fire now. All your students have gone amok. They've done something bad. My name's Bhat. I make pictures, I tell stories. I'm not an art educator. I'm an entertainer, so prepare to be dazzled by my professional work. I don't have anything older, so it's going to be pretty much everything I've done in the last few years. I'm going to try this thing. If it doesn't work, we should call like an old priest and a young priest. Okay, so I was born in India, and like any child, my interests lied in stories. It wasn't until I drew a parrot in art class for my mom that I learned that there was an artistic flame. But before the flame could be fanned, bang, whoa, double bang, whoa, triple bang, there we go. Bang, I went to Alabama. I was brought to Alabama, and where I was introduced to snow for the first time. And, sorry, these images in no way correlate to what I'm talking about, but if you find the story, like, tell me about it after. So that flame that existed, that artistic flame, kind of was reduced to embers when I'd come to Alabama. It was a complete cultural shift. After that, yeah, can we just do one at a time? Okay. Yeah, let's do one more. Okay. Got it. In middle school, I found new stories to tell, new images to make, and mostly they were related. After that, I had done one drawing of Scar from The Lion King, and my mom loved this image, and I asked my sister to take it to her art teacher, who claimed at the time it showed promise. My mom hung this photo in our kitchen for the next 10 years. The fire was being fanned once again. Can we go to the next slide? Oh, there you go. One art class in middle school, but it wasn't until my first day in high school when I walked into the art room, met Miss Huey, and my flame took shape. Can we go to the next one? I hated high school, but the art room was my haven. I couldn't be extinguished in that room, only inspired and fueled. Miss Huey pushed us in every direction imaginable. Can we go to the next slide? Yeah. Can we go to the one after as well? Okay, and Miss Huey pushed us, and at the end of years, I had a portfolio that stood tall. Ben's father had gassed up his car and taken 3 of us to Memphis, as Ben mentioned, to have our work critiqued for the first time. We came back tougher and with precise goals, scatter bust. Miss Huey, we can go to the next one. Miss Huey kept us going, led us to Montgomery, scholarship from the BAA. Go to the next one. This spark infected an inferno. Next one. I'd received another scholarship from SCAD, and with Ben heading there and Mike already blazing a trail ahead of us, the next 4 years looked exhilarating. Go to the next one. SCAD was a dream come true. Getting to exercise every creative bone, express every creative thought, was what every artist dreamed of. It was a playground for your mind. Next one. I got to dabble in several majors, spread my wings, so to speak. Next. And I lit up brightest in illustration classes. Next one. Seems like way faster than the other ones. It was then that I discovered and honed my skills in the digital realm. Can you go to the next one? The computer had become my latest tool for starting fires. Through a friend at SCAD, Mike's first roommate, in fact, I started my first job in Los Angeles looking for an animation company on their first film. Go to the next one. As the project completed, I found my home for the next decade, the entertainment industry. Go to the next one. I started working in films, commercials, music videos, games. If it entertained you, it excited me. I found a home for my projects, my stories. Next one. The child in me was alive again. The flame was kindled. And as you've seen, go to the next slide, I've set a lot of things ablaze. That's it. If you want to know the projects, what these are for, I can go back and tell you. It's all professional clients. Yeah, we can go all the way back to the first one if you'd like. Or we can, sorry, the reverse way might be better that way. We don't have to do it all again. One more. Okay, so this is for FX. It's for a TV show called The Bastard Executioner. If you go back. It's for Disney, obviously. This is for Katy Perry's California Girls music video. If you go back. This is for my friend's animation film, which actually, yeah, he's an incredible designer. The film got into tons of festivals. If you go back up. The one on the left is for Adidas. The one on the right was for a movie called The Most Violent Year. This is for PlayStation. This was for a personal project I had done. Miss Huey told me I had to show you because it's a little violent. Okay, if you like, this was the one on the left is a personal project. The one on the right is for Southern Company. This was for Activision and Assassin's Creed. The one on the left was for Gillette. The one on the right was for JP Morgan Chase. This was for Marvel. On the right is DC. The one on the left is Universal Studios. This is for Dodge SRT Viper. The one on the left was for Google. The one on the right was for Depeche Mode. For Google also. For Apple, actually, these were never released, so this is something you'll never get to see ever again. This was for a TV show that's not out yet, so please don't take any pictures. It's for AMC. Same here. And this was a personal project. And that's everything in the last year or so. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Russ, Hailey. I'm from Huntsville also. Was invited by Mrs. Huey as well to come and be part of this panel. I wanted to thank everyone from the Arts Council, the Alliance for Education and Arts, and of course the advocacy groups that are here. Also, I'm very honored to be with you guys. You're very talented. So I guess we can go to the next slide. I will start just some brief snapshots of some of the work I've been doing over the years. I took a more commercial approach with my craft. Design and drawing and design was always something I was interested in from an early age as well. I have been working for the past 20 years in different agencies and marketing capacities, commercial groups, internal marketing agencies, marketing groups, design firms, some boutique design firms. As I was preparing for the lecture here, based on my experience in branding and marketing, I kind of felt like I needed to tie some kind of a message around what I was presenting. So after Ms. Huey asked me to speak, I kind of started thinking about those three things: the inspiration, influences, and impacts that artists and designers have. So that's kind of where I kind of framed my excuse me, my presentation. This you might have seen or done before. it's a simple task. It's a simple assignment. I think I've got. I'm going to put this back. Excuse me. I've got the complete the drawing task. You can go to the next slide. There was a group of third graders, I guess, and you've probably, like I said, seen something very similar. A group of third graders asked to complete the drawing. We've got, the first group was given direction that if they completed the drawing and reached the correct answer, that there would be a prize or some kind of a reward, pizza party or extra points. The next slide. Part of the same group who were given the incentive and a correct answer frame. Next slide. A second group was asked to complete the drawing. And you see they were given no instruction, no expectation that the drawing be correct. One more slide shows 6 more drawings. So if you think about what it means to be correct, or what kind of pressure or influence that has on someone who's in 3rd grade, or someone who's in high school, or in college, or as a professional, if you restrict that creative process, we can see as early as 3rd grade what kind of results we might have. And the next slide. So that first group, with the expectation of being right, 80% of them drew simple houses and an average of 2 colors. I'm going to move out here so I can see. The second group had no expectation of being correct. No simple houses were drawn, and up to 5, an average of 5 colors were used. So we're talking about inspiration, influences, and impacts. How were those kids impacted, and were those impacts lasting? So we have to think about that as educators and as professionals and as advocates. Color the picture. This is me, and well, not me, but this was my assignment, and when I was 4 or 5 years old. At 4 or 5 years old, it was just she just handed it out in class. So it wasn't really, there was no expectation, I guess. You can go to the next slide and see what I did. It's not great, but that's what I turned in, or that's what I completed in the time allowed. My teacher, I remember her pulling me aside to talk to me about my coloring skills. So we had a little discussion. She showed me the correct way to color. And you probably know you just do take little 1-inch squares back and forth, and then try to just concentrate on one section of the drawing at a time, moving until you've completed the whole drawing. So she got a fresh sheet of paper with a pig, gave it to me, and sent me home. So the next slide shows my response. So I don't know if I was being a smartass or maybe passive-aggressive or something, but I do remember there being a little bit of a struggle maybe with rules and who was right and who was wrong, maybe. I'm not sure, but we never talked about coloring again. So slide. So did that person impact me? I think yes. I think I have very few memories from maybe 10 years old, but I remember that time with that teacher. Teachers have a responsibility, and so do the rest of us, and that's why we're here. So to influence each other and to inspire. So next slide. I didn't get very much art education through school. That's probably a common story. A lot of people here will tell, and that's why we're here also. We didn't have much. We had a teacher maybe once a month. Classes would go down the hall for 30 minutes maybe. It wasn't until high school that there was any kind of an art class, a dedicated art class where I was from, which is Madison, Alabama, the same place these guys are from. it was Bob Jones High School as well, but it was a very different Bob Jones that I went to. I'm a little bit older than these guys, so they all talk about each other. They weren't excluding me. I was just long gone before they got here. So it was my senior year of Bob Jones that Miss Huey started teaching there. So it was the first year of her time at Bob Jones. I initially either didn't know about it or had a full schedule or something, but I didn't take art. I had already been accepted. Like I said, I grew up with an interest in design. I drew houses, mostly buildings, structures, a lot of architecture, cityscapes, landscapes, things like that. So the interest was there to pursue architecture. I'd already been accepted, so that's where I was going. I think I had calculus and physics and things like that going on in high school. But I was almost done, and I had a couple of free periods, so I would spend those. A lot of times, I would spend those in the art room. And go to the next slide. You can see the art room is a little more fun than the calculus class. So, or it was for me. And I'm not saying you should drop calculus if you're in calculus, but for me, I decided I would rather be in the art room than in the math room. So Ms. Huey, of course, welcomed me there. The math teacher, I think, wasn't as excited, but actually I think it probably caused a pretty big stir. I think my parents had to go up to the school. Ms. Huey may have gotten in trouble, I'm not sure. But anyway, I joined her class and finished my senior year and was off to Auburn after that. Mrs. Huey, of course, I've stayed in touch with her over the years, and I could add several stories, but I would join these guys in saying thank you to Mrs. Huey for all that she's done and continues to do now. So next. While at Auburn, I started in architecture and loved it. I was a good student. Part of the weed out process of a lot of these fields requires the professors to be extremely hard on students to make sure that you are where you want to be and that you love what you're doing. We had 88 freshmen, and by the end of the year, there were 23 of us left. So it's a tough school, just like SCAD, just like all the other design disciplines. After 2 years, I left the architecture program and decided graphic design is where I wanted to be. And from there, I think we can go to the next slide. I think from there, you establish relationships with students and with professors that mimic the ones you'll have as a professional designer or an artist. I put this up here because the first thing I thought about was the give and take that you have with your fellow classmates and your students and your professors, clients and bosses. But then I decided it's really not a give and take if it's working correctly. It's really a push-pull relationship that implies a lot more shared activity and collaboration and encouragement. It inspires and motivates us and influences us better than the give and take. So, next slide. And I just put this quote up because I was thinking about that at the time, about being a mentor and having that kind of confidence in the people you're guiding. After college, I began my professional career. This is just a logo of one of the companies I started. It's High Creative. The HY are initials of the partners' last names. It's in a talk bubble because it's all about communication and relationships with clients. You also have relationships on projects with either the user or the viewer or whoever's buying your painting. It's all about a community and building those relationships as well. So next slide. Early on, we saw an interest in developing some of the early graphics for the iPhones once the Apple Store started. My children were about 2 and 3 years old at the time, and I was amazed when they would pick up my iPhone and how intuitive that was and how they were able to work with it and respond. Excuse me. What I was not amazed with was the quality of the graphics. When the App Store first opened, some of the applications you could get were fairly miserable as far as any design aesthetic. A lot of the programs early were rushed to get to the market and things like that, and design consideration wasn't one of the things that they paid a lot of attention to. And that's a general statement, of course. There were some good graphic representations. This was a series of flashcards we did. I was so impressed by the kids and the way they interacted with the phone that we focused on some youth education flashcards. You can go to the next screen. And Disney called us and asked us to be a part of a presentation for Baby Einstein. And next slide. And from here, I'm just going to show some examples of some of the other projects I've been involved with and ways I have been able to bring my artistic abilities to a profession. An illustration for Good People Beer. Next. This was the celebration season of the Huntsville Symphony Orchestra, and just some posters and collateral. Branding projects have been a big part of what I've done. There's some packaging and other point-of-sale material and graphics. Next slide. These are just some different kind of brochures, print collateral, things like that. The next few slides are for a company in Huntsville. Just show some consistency with branding, all the marketing efforts that I've been involved with. You'll see a wide variety of things from identity for corporate standards and web development, trade show industry type support materials, everything that you could possibly think of that is printed or created is done somewhere by designers. And we have that responsibility and pleasure to do that. The people who have influenced me and allowed me to create over the years have kind of given me what I needed, armed me with skills and the ability and the confidence to do that. So we'll go next. I think that's it. I will add, actually, I meant to say this too, as the reason that I'm kind of here. We've talked a lot about the lack of education in the schools and how we need to promote the arts in general. Like I said, I do have 2 young children, and so it's especially important to me that this moves forward and hopefully as quickly as possible. My daughter is very talented. She has a creative brain. And I've seen it from a young age. It's the same kind of thing that anybody who mentors children or teaches. You just see something in someone that there's some potential or promise. And I can see that. I saw it way earlier in her than I probably realistically should have. But I guess we have a responsibility to those people, to those kids, to improve what I had, which was very minimal until high school. She is part of a Destination Imagination team. I don't know if many of you have heard that, but it's a creative problem-solving competition team and they just won the state title this past weekend. So they'll be going to Knoxville to compete on a global level. And I'm glad and fortunate to live in a place like Madison, which has changed a lot in 20 or 30 years. There's a lot more there now for opportunities like that. But being here today and listening to some of the other speakers, that's probably a unique description compared to a lot of other places in Alabama. So Madison is very fortunate to have what we have. There's choir and theater and dance, and they're all nationally recognized. There are programs at Bob Jones and James Clemens. So we come from even the distance, the change in time from when I was there to when these guys were there. There's been a drastic difference in that state. Part of it's because the people in that community do value education. And I think they are more open to changing that to STEAM instead of STEM. We've got a lot of engineers and influences from the Space and Rocket Center and all the strategic efforts being done in Huntsville. And I think Huntsville, as a member of that community, I would like to reinforce that challenge to the state and to the rest of the communities around the state to